All right, so my name is Zhao, and I'm an assistant professor and also the GIS lab director at the UIS. Today I would like to share some of my research as part of my doctoral dissertation, which focuses on evaluating and visualizing door-to-door travel time advantage of high-speed rail. So I guess I'm seeing pretty much all of you for the first time because I just moved to town like this August and started this job 3 months ago. So I thought I would take this chance to introduce myself. So my PhD is in geography, and specifically my research interest is in transportation and urban geography. So particularly, I'm interested in how transportation system and the urban form, they interact with each other. And I'm also interested in 3D city modeling. In a couple of projects I've been doing, I've been using high-resolution LiDAR data to construct 3D city models. I've also developed some spatial metrics to quantify those the urban form. And as you can probably tell, GIS and remote sensing, they pretty much form the foundation of my research in a lot of cases. And once again, I've just started. So I'm hoping that I will see many of you in the future. All right, so just quickly a little bit background on high-speed rail, right? So high-speed rail offers high-speed rail passenger connections between city centers. And in the past decade, we've seen some interest from both the federal level and also the state level. So for example, a statewide high-speed rail construction has been started in California in 2015, and there have also been a couple of other active proposals on high-speed rail across the country. And there is a consensus in high-speed scholars that one key factor for the successful establishment of high-speed rail is its capability to improve accessibility. So by accessibility, in this case, I'm referring to its capability to bring people from point A to B in a shorter amount of time. And that, I would argue, is heavily dependent on urban form. So urban form refers to, very generally, the physical characteristics that make up the built-up area of a city. And if we categorize urban form into two extremes, right? On one side, we have the compact city, and then on the other side, we have the sprawling city where, the built-up area is very spread out. And we put cities across the world on the spectrum. We could see, the cities in the United States are in general more spread out than its counterparts in, say, cities in Europe and Asia. And that impacts accessibility by impacting access and egress time. So in this time, access time refers to the time it takes for a traveler to start from its trip origin to get to the departing facility in your departing facility, and also egress time refers to the time that a traveler has to they will take for the traveler to start from its arriving facility to its final destination. So that's sort of the definition of access and egress times in this context. Over here, this is a visual explanation of what I just said. So basically, over here, you can see the data is a bit outdated. It's from 1990, but the message is it is sending is still very true to date. So over here is a built-up area comparison between Atlanta and Barcelona. So you see the two cities have roughly the same amount of population, but the built-up area of Atlanta is more than 25 times larger than that in Barcelona, right? So if we are talking about high-speed accessibility, we could probably ignore, even ignore access and egress time because it's going to be very short. But if we're talking about high-speed accessibility in, say, Atlanta, well, that might be a totally different story. So high-speed study has been studied in in the current literature has been studied either in the intercity level and at the intracity level. So at the intercity level, over here, that's sort of a typical example. Has your study, accessibility study in Europe, you can see cities are represented as points, right? So in this case, so basically access and egress time are just ignored. But, For a city like Barcelona, that's probably fine, but it's probably not so appropriate if you are studying US cities, for example, like in Atlanta or many other US cities. And it's also carried out at the intercity level. So at this level, usually the study will do a catchment area delineation from the station. And say over here, that's one example on the proposed Texas high-speed rail between Dallas and Houston. So basically, it does catchment area, say, within 20 minutes driving or 40 minutes driving, what's the coverage of the station? But that also have problems. So first, high-speed rail offers intercity connections, right? Your trip does not only depend on one end of your trip, it also depends on the other end. And also, it does not factor in competition. Say if I have an airport in the vicinity, I might consider that as an option as well. So that brings to the sort of contribution of this study, in which this study proposes and defines a door-to-door travel time that integrates both the inter and intercity trip segments simultaneously, right? So if you see this graph, the 5 different components, we have the onboard time that covers the intercity portion, and then we have the access and egress time that covers the intracity portion. Also, we have the waiting time and transfer time to sort of cover the gaps or the transitions. And also, based on this door-to-door travel time, it's then feasible to delineate the catchment area that also factors in competition from other modes of travel, such as airplane. All right, so I carried out this study using a case study, based on case study that's focusing on the Dallas and Houston high-speed rail. So basically, this is a high-speed rail proposal, and it will connect the fourth and fifth most populous urban area in the United States. And one of the selling points is that it will connect the 2 city centers under 90 minutes. Right? So counting the proposed high-speed rail, and we also have, so that will make it a total of 3 public travel modes between the 2 cities. So one is the proposed high-speed rail, and one is the flight between the major hubs. In this case, I'm using the 3-letter airport code. So that's airports between Dallas-Fort Worth, and the IAH is George Bush International. And also, we have flight between minor hubs, airports between airports Dallas Airport, Love Field, and Houston Hobby. So in my dissertation, I talked about automobile as well, because you can just drive, but that is private driving and private automobile, private travel. So it will have to bring a lot of other factors to really make the case comparable. So just for this presentation, I'm talking specifically about those 3 public transportation modes. So obviously, if you want to factor in access and egress time, we cannot no longer just represent cities as points, and that's also inappropriate because it's so spread out, especially in the southern cities, in the southern part of the country, like Dallas and Houston. And so I chose, in this case, I chose urban areas to represent the city. And also I divided into sort of these subunits. In this case, I chose census block groups as a close approximation of neighborhoods. And within those 2 cities, I use automobile I chose the automobile just for this case study as the access and egress mode. Because if you know the culture over there, people love their cars, besides many other things. So it's a very auto-driven city. So I think it's appropriate in this case. So basically what I have is a list of origins and list of destinations. So for each of the census blocks in one city, I could calculate, all the trips to all the census block groups at the other city for each of those 3 modes, right? And then I could get a proportion, say, okay, so out of all these trips, about, say, for example, for that specific census block group, high-speed is the fastest mode for 70% 4%, and so on and so forth. And in terms of visualizing the results, I also did some extra work to borrow the idea of RGB color mixing. So pretty much I assigned so I have 3 modes. That's convenient because in RGB we also have 3 primary colors. So assign red to high-speed rail, and green to the minor hubs, and blue to the major hubs. And then I fill up that proportion to 55, because that's sort of the cap of the color ramp, and convert that value into a color. So the idea is that, as we shift or deviate from, say, the high-speed station to another mode, to the facility of another mode, we should be able to see the gradual change of color. So that way, we could get an idea of the pattern of the intracity patterns of the dominance of each traveling facility or traveling modes, right? So over here, that's the result. So as you can see, say for Houston, the 3 traveling facilities, they are far apart enough to establish their own territory, right? So high-speed rail is sort of dominant in the center, and you can see Airport Hobby and also Airport George Bush is also have their sort of territory, and you can even see, how the transition is made spatially among the 3 modes. And for Dallas, considering sort of the extensive area of the Dallas and Fort Worth Arlington area, the 3 traveling modes are relatively clustered together, so there's no clear winning. But because this approach is based on door-to-door travel time, so basically you can see because of the central location of the high-speed rail station in Houston, it also helps the high-speed rail station in Dallas to establish its dominance over the 2 airports. Right? So that's quickly how it's very quickly the results of this case study. So some quick conclusions and implications. Okay. So this study sort of proposed an integrative framework to incorporate urban form into high-speed planning. So it also considers both ends of the trip, and also it factors in competition. In this case, competition between high-speed rail and the two modes of air travel. And this concept, this framework is realized using GIS, and it could work as an enhanced decision-making tool for urban transportation planning to review those intracity patterns or review those patterns at a finer spatial scale. And also produce these localized accessibility indices that could be used for subsequent modeling. All right, so just quickly, some future studies I want to pursue is one to incorporate real-time drive time, because in this case, I did not really factor congestion into the picture, but that could be done using, say, Google Maps API. So you could pretty much get a pretty close approximation of congestion, to factor in congestion to get a real drive time. And then, I did not really think of transit, because over there, like between Dallas and Houston, there are some. But also I know, say, for example, in Chicago, we have the L system that is quite there. It has a lot of riders. So I would just be interested to see, how the pattern will be different between transit riders and private car drivers. And of course, I cannot really end my presentation without talking about, the high-speed rail between the proposal between Chicago and St. Louis, right? So, and also this study or this framework can be used as a decision-making tool for both transportation urban planners to get some sort of ideas what's the benefit at the system-wide level at finer spatial scale, and also it could be used for individual travelers to get a sense, what the door-to-door advantage is, because that's what's most important to individual travelers, between high-speed rail and its competing modes. All right, so that's all I have. But in the end, I guess I just really want to quickly say that I realize transportation is pretty much my thing. I do GIS as well, but I also realize transportation itself is a very complex system. So there are also like maybe environmental accessibility needs, and also there is needs for to involve policy making. So I am a GIS person, and I can say I'm pretty comfortable using GIS and remote sensing. But also, my position is situated in the Department of Environmental Studies. So I know quite several people in my department actually that are experts in doing environmental assessments. And also, the department is situated under College of Public Affairs Administration. So we have a ton of people that are experts in the policy-making side. So I guess the message I'm trying to send is that we are just right around the corner, and I think we have those expertise. So let's get together and talk about some possibilities. Taking advantage of the diverse skill set we have at UIS, and try to make positive impact on improving the state's infrastructure. Okay, so that's all I have, and I'm eager to hear what you guys think. Questions? Comments? Well, you can always find me later. I'll be here. And honestly, I hope to see you guys quite often. So, like I said, we are just around the corner, and I think we do have a skill set to make some positive contributions. So please, anytime, just let us know. All right, cool, great, thank you.